You've been avoiding things that will never break your fast. A bit of butter in your coffee, a squeeze of lemon, a stick of sugar-free gum. You've been treating them like threats, and the science says none of them move your body out of fat-burning mode, not even close. Here's what actually determines whether your fast is broken, and the answer is going to make the next 12 hours a lot easier. Before we go through the list, let's talk about what actually breaks a fast, because without this, none of the 7 items make sense. Your fast isn't broken the moment something enters your mouth. It's broken when your blood sugar rises enough to trigger an insulin response, and when that insulin response is large enough to shut down fat burning and cellular repair. That's the threshold, that's the line, and it's a lot harder to cross than most people think. Think of insulin like a gate. When it swings open wide, fat burning stops. When it stays low and quiet, your body keeps doing what you want, drawing on stored fat, maintaining that repair state, staying in the mode you worked hard to reach. The question isn't, did I swallow something? The question is, did what I swallowed move the gate? Most of what fasters obsessively avoid doesn't move the gate at all. Here's where it gets interesting. Some of these things don't just fail to break your fast, they actually support it. They stabilize blood sugar, they sharpen the transition, they make the fast work better. You've been avoiding things that were quietly on your side, 7 of them. Let's go through them. Number 1, sugar-free gum. And this is the one that creates the most arguments online. Some people swear sugar-free gum spikes insulin. The argument rests on a real idea. Your body can respond to the taste of sweetness before calories even arrive. You taste something sweet, and in theory, your gut starts preparing. Some research has shown a small insulin response from sweet taste alone. Here's the problem. That response is tiny. We're talking a minor, brief uptick, not the kind of sustained elevation that shuts down fat burning or pulls you out of repair mode. The gate nudges slightly and then settles back. The bigger concern with most sugar-free gum is actually the sugar alcohols, xylitol and sorbitol. In large amounts, these can cause digestive issues. That's a gut issue, not a fasting issue. 1 or 2 pieces during a fast, the evidence doesn't support treating that like a metabolic emergency. If you're using gum as a hunger management tool, something to chew so you don't raid the kitchen at hour 9, it's probably doing more good than harm. If you're chewing 6 pieces an hour, that's a different conversation. Number 2, a splash of cream or fat in your coffee. This one will surprise the people who've been drinking their coffee black like it's a personal test. Fat has almost no insulin response. A small amount of heavy cream, a teaspoon, 5 calories of pure fat, does not meaningfully raise blood sugar. It doesn't trigger the gate. Your body sees fat during a fast and essentially says, yes, this is the fuel source I'm already using, carry on. There's research behind this. Scientists tested how much insulin your body releases after eating different foods. Sugar and bread, big spike. Chicken and fish, moderate. Pure fat, almost nothing. Your body barely reacts to fat at all. It just uses it as fuel and moves on. What fat in coffee does do is provide a small caloric input. If your definition of fasting is strictly 0 calories, then yes, cream breaks your fast by definition. But if your goal is fat burning and keeping insulin suppressed, a small amount of pure fat doesn't disrupt either of those. The fat-burning machinery stays on. This is why butter coffee and similar approaches exist. They're exploiting a real biological quirk. Pure fat is essentially invisible to your insulin system. The practical line, a splash of heavy cream or a small amount of butter, you're likely fine metabolically. A latte with oat milk and 2 pumps of syrup is a completely different animal. Number 3, sparkling or flavored water. Plain sparkling water does nothing to break a fast. Carbon dioxide dissolved in water is not a metabolic event. No insulin response, no blood sugar shift, no cellular signaling disrupted. The bubbles are just bubbles. Flavored sparkling water is where people start to worry, and it depends entirely on what's doing the flavoring. If it comes from natural citrus oils or essences with 0 grams of carbohydrates, you're dealing with trace aromatic compounds. Your body is not reading that as a feeding signal. If the flavor comes from added sugars, even small amounts, that changes things. Read the label. 0 grams of carbohydrates, 0 grams of sugar. Fasting safe, regardless of the flavor. The discomfort some people feel after sparkling water during a fast isn't a metabolic response. It's carbonation temporarily expanding the stomach. That's just gas. Your fast is intact. Sparkling water is one of the most useful tools you have. The carbonation creates mild fullness, it makes plain water bearable after hour 6, and it takes the edge off hunger without doing a single thing to your insulin. Drink it freely. Number 4, collagen peptides. This one is genuinely more complex, so let's be accurate about it. Collagen contains protein. Protein triggers an insulin response, smaller than carbohydrates, but real. Protein also activates the pathway that signals your body to shift from repair mode into growth mode. If your body's internal cleanup process is a priority for you, protein is one of the things that tells your body to wind it down. So does collagen break your fast? The honest answer, it depends what you're fasting for. If your goal is fat burning, a small serving of collagen probably doesn't cross the threshold that shuts down meaningful fat oxidation. The insulin response is modest. If your goal is deep cellular repair, maximizing that cleanup state, then yes, collagen introduces protein, and protein signals we have nutrients shift to growth mode. It's not that collagen is uniquely harmful, it's that protein, generally, is the primary off switch for the repair state. What collagen has going for it? It's low in the specific amino acids, leucine especially, that most strongly activate that switch. Whey protein hits that signal much harder and faster. Collagen sits at the gentler end of the spectrum. Think of it as a quiet knock on the door versus the kind of knock that comes with a battering ram. Your body hears it, but the response is different in scale. The practical call. If you're fasting for fat loss, small amounts of collagen are likely fine. If you extended your fast specifically to maximize the repair and recovery benefits, save it for your eating window. Number 5, lemon or lime juice. This is the counterintuitive one. Lemon juice, something made from fruit that fasters are told to avoid. Here's what the biology actually shows. The acidity in lemon and lime juice doesn't raise blood sugar, it lowers it. The organic acids in citrus appear to slow sugar absorption and blunt glucose spikes. In some cases, they actively support the transition from a fed to a fasted state. A squeeze of lemon in water contains somewhere between 1 and 3 grams of carbohydrates from trace fruit sugars. That's a small number, and those sugars are buffered by the same acidity that makes lemon useful in the first place. The net effect on insulin? Minimal to zero for most people. You've been squinting at a lemon like it's the enemy. The lemon was never the problem. The problem was assuming fruit automatically means an insulin spike. The mechanism here is more sophisticated than that, and in this case, the acidity is working with the fast, not against it. Add lemon, add lime, your fast continues. Number 6, vitamins and supplements. This one has 3 different answers depending on what you're taking. Fat-soluble vitamins, D, E, K, and A, are absorbed with fat. Without some fat present, your body absorbs a fraction of what you take. If you're taking these on an empty stomach, you're likely wasting them. Move fat-soluble vitamins to your eating window, take them with food, and the problem disappears. That's a timing issue, not a fasting issue. Water-soluble vitamins, C, the B vitamins, absorb fine without food. No fat needed, no insulin response, no interference with the fasting state. These are genuinely fasting compatible. Capsule fillers, the cellulose and binding compounds in most supplements, are trace amounts that represent no meaningful caloric or insulin load. Not a concern. The genuine problem in this category, gummy vitamins and chewable supplements. These often contain several grams of sugar per serving. That's where the line actually gets crossed. The supplement might be harmless. The delivery format is the issue. The rule, if it dissolves in water and has no sugar, it's almost certainly fasting compatible. If you have to chew it and it tastes good, check the label before assuming. Number 7, apple cider vinegar. It's earned an odd reputation, half miracle cure, half wellness punchline. The truth is more specific than either side suggests. Here's the mechanism that's actually supported. The acetic acid in ACV improves insulin sensitivity and blunts post-meal blood sugar spikes. Multiple studies have shown that taking a small amount before eating reduces the glucose response to that meal. It's not dramatic, but it's real and reasonably well documented. What that means during a fast, ACV does not raise blood sugar. It doesn't trigger insulin. It gently supports the low insulin environment you're already trying to maintain. The acetic acid is doing the opposite of what you'd want to avoid. There's also a practical hunger angle. ACV slows gastric emptying slightly, which can take the edge off hunger during the fast. Useful at hour 10 when the hunger gets loud. The caveat, it's acidic. Taking it undiluted is hard on tooth enamel. Always dilute it, a tablespoon in a large glass of water. If it irritates your stomach on an empty gut, your digestive system is giving you useful feedback, not a sign your fast is failing. The thing that gets dismissed as a wellness gimmick is, in this case, genuinely supportive of fasting physiology. That doesn't happen often enough to ignore when it does. 7 things, all of them safe. Here's the reframe that connects them. You've been approaching your fast as a rule system, a list of threats, a fence around an empty window of time. That approach made fasting harder and cut you off from things that were never working against you. The biology doesn't care about rules, it responds to signals. Specifically, is insulin elevated? Is blood sugar up? Has the repair state been switched off? Those are the questions your body is actually asking. Most of what fasters avoid never trips any of those signals. Salt stabilizes you, lemon supports you, sparkling water keeps you going through hour 8. A splash of fat in coffee maintains the fat-burning state. Apple cider vinegar is quietly working on your side. Fasting isn't about maximum restriction. It's about understanding what your body is actually responding to and then using that knowledge instead of avoiding shadows. Every hour you spent white-knuckling past a glass of lemon water was an hour you spent fighting something that wasn't fighting you. The boundary is real. The things that actually cross it, sugar, significant carbohydrates, large protein loads, are pretty obvious once you understand what the body is watching for. Everything else, work with it. The next mistake most people make, they fix their fasting window, stop avoiding the wrong things, and then break the fast in a way that wipes out the entire benefit in the first 15 minutes. If you want to know exactly how to end a fast without undoing everything you just built, that video is right here.